Hi, good afternoon. Thanks for coming. Our dad, our poppy, your partner, your friend, was born in 1927 in East Liverpool, Ohio. Came from modest means. His dad was a photographer and took as much work as he could get, but as he used to tell us, he had a choice. His mom used to tell him, he had a choice at breakfast. You have tea or toast and tea. He said his neighbor is the one who used to start calling him Keith, and many of you know his full name is Donald Keith Eardley, but his neighbor started calling him Keith, so that stuck. And so he implored upon us of name your kids what you're going to call them. So I think we generally have 9 grandkids that go by their first name. He worked some odd jobs up through high school, but the day before he turned 18, he signed up for the Navy to follow his older brother Scotty, and went off to boot camp, as he says, joined boot camp on Monday, and the Japs quit on Tuesday. So he's got a World War II victory medal in the closet that I cherish. My mom always questioned the validity of it, but it's worthwhile nonetheless. So I spent about 3 years out in the Pacific. Came back to Ohio and started to work in one of the local potteries that are big in that area. And it was special for me because I took a tour with him about 5 years ago in hometown in Pittsburgh and East Liverpool, Ohio, and the building still stood. That was where he returned after coming back from the Navy. And he says, right there and through those windows is kind of a moment that changed my life. I was sitting there swabbing the floors, and I actually had a boss that I think liked me quite a bit, but he was on my case, and you missed this, and you missed that. And he said, you know, Joe, and I forget the first name, but he never forgot much, so he knew who it was. He said, Joe, take this job and shove it, I'm going to college. So that was a moment that changed his life, changed our lives. And so on the GI Bill, went back to Pitt. Was essentially the first one in his family to go to college. And I certainly always respected and admired that. And then after Pitt, he had a sister that lived down in Arkansas, married to a primary care physician. So he said, Keith, beer's cold, steaks are ready for grilling, come on down, we'll see about getting you in medical school. So that got him to Arkansas medical school, and got over to University of Florida in radiology, and found a great man, great partner of 50 years in Dr. Herb Kerman. Dr. Kerman meant a lot to my dad. As a senior partner, worked with him for 50 years, was very good friends, and so he brought my dad on. He started to work here at the local hospital in Halifax, and met a good-looking young woman, Nancy, who's graduated in the first nursing class from the University of Florida, and missed the University of Florida, and said, that's the one I'm going to marry. So the 4 of us are fortunate that that worked out, and he married Nancy back in 1963. So for 27 years they were married, and they built this house in 1968, had the 4 of us, and unfortunately after 27 years she passed away in 1990, and he was 62, just about ready to retire. And that was probably an inflection point for him of, you know, he had a choice. And, you know, now I'm glad that he made the choice to live a full life for the next 25 years, and he was the central figure to our family, and the one we all rallied around. So he re-energized, and for the next, I guess, 22 years, he you know, was a man that we idolized, and we came back to here often. So I'm honored today to see so many friends of his throughout these years that were meaningful to him, as well as he, I know, was meaningful to you. And in the book, in Matthew, there's a story of 4 seeds. And so Jesus tells the story through Matthew of 4 seeds fell off the cart, and one of them fell upon the path and was picked up by a bird. Another fell in shallow soil and grew quickly, but when the sun came out, withered and died. A third fell among the thorns and was kind of effectively choked out and never grew. And then a fourth fell in good soil. And that fourth one that fell in good soil bare good harvest and had deep roots. And while Jesus meant to talk about that in the love of Jesus Christ and of the faith of God, I think it also is very meaningful as I think about my dad and relationships. Relationships come in many varieties, and those that are shallow, those that wither quickly if bad times come. And I think an attribute of my father is that he had strong relationships, deep roots. And I think you're all here as a testament to those deep roots that he had throughout the years. And so I'm glad that he fell in good soil. For me, some of my fondest memories were some time that I had alone with him. Growing up here, I used to cherish race day and going out twice a year to the racetracks. And some of it was just to see the cars, but at least half of it was to spend a good 12 hours one-on-one with my dad at the track for the day. We used to go to Stetson basketball games, and that wasn't necessarily championship caliber basketball, but to me it didn't matter, being 10, 11, 12. It was the hour-and-a-half drive over to DeLand that I got one-on-one time with my dad. And then later when my mom passed, it was very intentional that at least I was the good recipient of a very active summer after that. So he took me to rafting on the Grand Canyon, sailing in the Grenadines, and down to Key West in the Dry Tortugas. So always appreciated that. But he connected with each of us, each of the 4 kids and the 9 grandkids in a different way, and had meaningful relationships that were different for each of us. But that was one of his talents, was to know how to connect. So I believe he was a man of faith, but he did that in a low-key way, and much like his philosophy on life is do as I do, not as I say. And so he didn't say about his faith very much. He didn't talk verbally of his love for us, but it was all his actions. And one of those actions was sending out newspaper clippings. And so I still have the copy that he sent probably 3 or 4 years ago. And the title is Keeping the Car Filled with Gas and Other Ways to Say I Love You. So he even took the time to highlight certain paragraphs in the article. So it goes on to say, a couple excerpts, we've become a society that places great importance on saying I love you. As we fixate on those words, we can forget that love is sometimes even more powerful when left unsaid. A husband might show love in subtle ways, such as filling his wife's car with gas. This is something he would always do if he borrowed one of our cars. Our culture is also trivialized, saying I love you. Some people who have trouble expressing love say it's because they never heard the words as kids. The senior writer for Hallmark says he can't recall his mother ever saying she loved him. She was raised in a family of tough ranch people. A reader says, she wished my dad would say I love you too when I said I love you, Daddy, but he didn't and still doesn't. Such yearnings for love are a reminder of how crucial it is to recognize quiet expressions of love. One reader never heard loving words from her parents, but her dad always shoveled the path to the school bus. Another discovered the beauty of unspoken love. Starting when she was a kid at summer camp, she had received newspaper clippings in the mail from her dad. So this article, I think, was his way of saying how he gave love to us. And as we were going through the will and his official papers and folder, in the last couple days, out drops the original of this article, in case we were to forget. One of his couple quotes that certainly I remember is, he always took time for his family. And he says, charity begins at home. And another quote that he would say is, the best thing you can do in life is to pick your parents. So the 4 of us picked a couple great parents, and what we didn't gain in our time with our mother, we gained in her influence. I was worried about this day for probably 10 years, that I knew he was 75 and 77 and 78 and 79, and he had energy that was more than any of us. And I knew something might occur to interrupt that. So I always lived consciously with my time with him. And so I never wanted to live with the regret of not spending time with him or living with unanswered questions. So fortunately on his last night, which was a couple Wednesdays ago at Thanksgiving, he was healthy, happy, had the 4 kids, 9 grandkids around. It's been 5 years since we were here. Some of you know the story, but he was very healthy and happy on the last night he was with us. And it had been quite some time since we were all here back at the house. And so for me, after dinner, I walked up to him, gave him a big hug, and said, "Thanks for having us all down here at the house and back together again. I love you, Dad." So it's hard to top that those are the last words I told him before he went to sleep that night, not to wake up. But he, if he was here, would say, "Don't feel sorry for me. That's exactly how I wanted to go." And I've joked a bit that I think that was according to his plan, and I think that that's a combination of lower and uppercase. So I'm going to end with reading a card that he sent for a birthday earlier this year. I have a birthday in January, and he would never miss our birthdays, both us as kids and 9 grandkids. And so it just simply wrote, "Just remember, wherever life takes you, whatever dreams you follow, you will always be my son, and I will always love you." And I know that, Dad. I know that. I love you too. Jill?